Hey, you guys, welcome to another podcast with April and Davey. And today we are going to be talking about a little bit of our parenting.
Yeah, I put out a poll when we were first talking about doing a podcast on everything on Instagram that people wanted to learn about, hear from us. And probably the top response was our parenting, disciplining our kids. So this is a exciting topic, and we're just going to jump right into it.
It's kind of a scary topic for me because I don't feel like I'm a perfect parent. I found some good tools, and I'm excited to share those tools with you guys, but we screw up a lot, like a lot.
Yep, let's just do the old preface of not perfect people, not perfect parents, but we're just going to do our best to kind of show you what we've learned in our, how many kids we got now?
6 kids.
6 kids.
We've been doing this parenting thing for almost 14 years, and we have definitely learned some really valuable things. We forget to do them sometimes, but it doesn't make them less valuable. So I'm going to share those with you guys today.
And I think throughout the years, we definitely have evolved our parenting style. We've learned things as kids get older, get into different stages. So we'll kind of go through the evolution and how we started and where we're at now.
Okay. So I guess we should just start from the very beginning. When we became parents, I was really good at like taking care of babies. So I was kind of like, I got this.
She was a natural.
I got this parenting thing. I babysat a lot. I knew how to take care of babies. I read a book, What to Expect While Expecting. And we also read like a sleep training book. And I don't remember what it was called. But
did you expect what you were expecting to expect?
Yeah, it was pretty expectable.
Good.
That's not even a word. Okay. So when we got like a 2-year-old, that's when things started to get a little bit rocky, I would say. Don't you think?
Yeah, we're like, oh crap, we better start taking this parenting thing seriously.
And it was control issues. When our oldest son Zayd turned about 2, I think that's when things started getting like hard because he started having his own ideas and his own desires, and I was like, no, just listen to me, do what I say. And it became a power struggle. There was a lot of power struggles. What didn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest power struggles was potty training. That was an early on power struggle. There's this funny picture of Zayd. He's naked, like hiding under a table. We have the carpet cleaner in one hand, and he's like hanging on or something. Just this crazy, funny
he's like
picture.
Arched back, screaming. We'll have to share it on our Instagram. It's really funny. You don't see anything because I think that the carpet cleaner bottle covers his private parts, but it's
that was one
funny.
thing we learned early on with potty training. Like, you got to wait till the kid's ready. That's when it's going to be easiest, when the kid is ready. We were like, okay, you're old enough, time to start potty training.
He was like, I don't want to sit on the potty train.
That was, he did not want to sit on the potty train.
Anyway, so then I started reading other books and I will say this, I am super grateful for each one of my kids because every single one of them is different. They have different personalities. They have different love languages, and they have different ways that they need to be loved, and they have different struggles. And every single child has brought different struggles, and because of their struggles, I have learned parenting skills because we had to start digging for information because at that point you're like, oh crap, we don't even know what to do. And we found a lot of really good self-help books. I remember when Zayd was really little, we would read the Love and Logic books.
Yeah, so the Love and Logic books, those did help us a lot. They gave us the Love and Logic book. It gave us great techniques for dealing with kids and kind of keeping your cool. And I don't remember a lot about it. I remember one big thing that we would do with it was what do you remember from that book?
Okay,
April?
there's only a couple things I remember, and I don't think it was as great as Davey described it. I kind of felt like it helped, but it was like tricking your kids into behaving like I remember being like, when Zayd would kind of act out, if we were planning on going swimming, for example.
Yeah, the energy drain, right?
He would start throwing a fit or not listening, and I'd be like, uh-oh, when you don't listen, it drains my energy. Oh, and I'd sit on the couch and get an energy drain. And it worked for a little while because he'd be like, oh, no, I'm like, the only way to give me energy is to, like, basically listen to me. So it was kind of like a power struggle where I was tricking him into being obedient.
Although I don't think it's completely just tricking. Like, I'll even play that card now where if the kids are fighting all together, I'm just like, guys, I just don't feel like doing anything for you right now. Like, I'm energy drained. Like it's not.
Well, it's true because you're like, it really does drain your energy when your kids are fighting. But at the same time with Zaid, it didn't work for him
Didn't
because
care.
he was so smart. Like, guys, like, I don't think you understand how smart Zaid is. Like, we know how smart Zaid is because we've actually had his IQ tested because we were like, what in the heck is going on? Because some of our parenting techniques, he would like run circles around us, and he did it at school and at church. And so it was like really frustrating because he was so smart. He already saw exactly where you were going with this, and he like ran a circle around
He's
you
2 steps ahead of you.
and threw a squirrel. Like, if you don't know what throwing a squirrel is, we call that when he just like distracts and like gets you off topic. But anyway, so I feel like it was helpful for really little kids, but as he started getting older, especially, it just wasn't as helpful anymore.
So that takes it.
Sorry.
So that takes us into, did we only read 2 parenting books basically? Because the next one, we're like, this one stuck.
No, I feel like I read like 2 or 3 of the Love and Logic ones, and it like
Oh
every
yeah,
time
they
I
had
was
some
able
additional ones. Yeah.
to kind of pull a few things that were helpful from it, but it wasn't something that like I was like, this is it. This has got to be what helps us. When Zaid was like in 2nd grade is when I did find this book that I'm going to reference most of the rest of this podcast.
Do you remember how I found it?
No.
I was filming. I'm a videographer. I was filming a conference, and this lady, Nicholene Peck, gets up there, and she has her kids on stage with her, and their kids are reciting these life skills, like just these amazing things. And I was like, April, this is amazing. Like, I don't know if this is real or not, or if her kids are just like super amazing humans, robots or something. But they were just repeating these things. They had these things. I was just impressed by her. It felt good to me. I was like, April, we got to check this out. I got it. I read the book. I was
inspiring stuff here, people.
Yeah, it really was. So I bought the book. Yeah, I should have had her give it to me for free, but I think I just bought it. And
I feel like there's so much information in here, even after this podcast. Like in the future, we're going to try to have Nicholene Peck on the podcast because she does live in Utah and she's pretty close to us. So we could probably make that happen. But I'm going to give you a little background on her. She is a mother of 4 of her own kids. And she was on a TV show. It was like Trading Troubled Teens or something. Anyway, she like took on some really troubled teens. But before that, she had decided to take on foster care kids. And she said, give me any of the kids. Like, I'll take the ones that are the hardest. Like, I'll take the hardest kids, which is, there's like levels. And she signed up for the hardest of the hards. And because of that, she had to go to the state and receive special training to know how to deal with these kids. And while she was receiving that training, it kind of hit her like, holy cow, everyone needs these life skills. Everyone needs to know this stuff. And wow, my thing just fell. What is going on? Is this broken? Oh, you just need to tighten it. There we go. So she kind of felt like everyone needed to have these skills, and that's why she wrote this book, and she kind of evolved it into a parenting style that she calls A House United. So it's a parenting book called A House United. It says changing children's hearts and behaviors by teaching self-government. And that whole entire statement is so important in what we're going to talk about, because self-government, what does that mean? Can you tell me what that means?
I think it's basically giving kids the skills to govern themselves, to preparing them for life in this world with consequences. When they make bad choices, these things are going to happen. And they're smaller consequences when they live at home, but there's going to be bigger consequences when they leave. So learning to govern themselves.
Absolutely. So, and it also talks about in the book, like, you have to set up a family government system. So like in the United States, for example, we are in this country and we have to follow the rules of the land, the laws of the land. And we are taught those laws as we get older, and you have to abide by them or you end up in prison or jail or in a lot of trouble. So I think the first step is like setting up that family government. So it talks about a lot in the book how you need to have family councils, family meetings, like on a regular basis, weekly. You could even do it like 2 times a week for a little while until you get your family government set up and rolling. But the thing that I love the most about this book is that it works for every single age person. If you are a human being then you need to know these life skills. Now, obviously, there's going to be some kids that might have some learning disabilities or physical limitations and stuff to where they can't know it as well as like someone else, but at the same time, you can still adjust it. That's what I love about it. It's like you can adjust it for any person in your family at any age.
And we're going to be basically, like, this is not like a sponsored thing with nicholene. We love this book, has just helped us so much with our parenting, and we feel super strongly about it. And if we're going to talk about disciplining our kids, basically everything we do is things that we found in this book.
I mean, everything that we do right. Sometimes we screw up.
We're like, okay, we need to read the book
like,
again.
in fact, I flipped open the book today and like read a couple things on criticisms, and I was like, ooh, I need to be better about that. I'm not the greatest at being a constructive criticism giver. Sometimes I'm the destructive criticism giver, which I'm working on. But
so we're going to go over just a few things that we love and are applying right now. This is a 400-page book, people.
Oh my gosh, I can't possibly go through.
Yeah, so there's so much good stuff, and like I said, I'd love to have nicholene on here sometime, and she can, tell you her side of things. But yeah, we're just going to go through some different things in here. So first off is setting up family government and holding family council.
Now, what that looks like for our family is, she had a bunch of examples in the book, but we wrote our family mission statement on a piece of paper. We framed it, we put it in our house, and we also put it on the front of a binder. And in the binder, we printed off the worksheets from her book, which included the family council worksheet, a mentor session worksheet, which is when you sit down individually with each one of your children once a week. And it has like line by line prompts and questions of how to like structure that meeting, which is super helpful. And then there's couple meetings. So we printed all these 3 papers out and stuck them in a binder. And then on the front of the binder, it had our family mission statement. Do you remember the family mission statement?
Oh, not by heart.
It's like, we, the Orgill family, will love, support, and be united with one another as it's like, it's really long and I don't have it memorized by heart, but it's basically saying we will respect and love and
the
forgive.
Kind of atmosphere we want to have in the home and all this stuff. And these family meetings, we have kind of been slacking on them. Our lives have kind of been upside down lately with having the new baby, but we're going to jump right into it. And I love each one of them individually, the family council, the mentor session, and the couple session. When I was on my mission, we would have companionship inventory, where at the end of the week we'd sit down, talk about the things we need to work on, the upcoming plans for the week, and having that, and that's the good way to start. And then going into mentor session where you get that one-on-one time individually with each kid. Do you want to dive into what you go over in the mentor session?
And I think that it's really important to set this up, because I mean, maybe that's why we have been slacking a little bit, but we've still been okay. Our family hasn't fallen apart because we do have a family government. The kids do know what is expected of them. And we set it all up for years now. They've been going through it and they know it. So if we do miss a few weeks, it's not the end of the world. But when things do kind of get crazy, it reminds us like, oh, we better have a family meeting, and we kind of pull it back together. What did you ask me? Sorry.
Oh, just mentor session. What things do you go over in the mentor session?
It has like a date and then the youth name and then parent conducting. And then they get to tell us of any exciting news. And I actually really love this portion of it, because sometimes it's their birthday or a birthday party they're going to. And sometimes it's something totally random that I did not even know about. Like, I didn't hear about this, but they're like, oh, we're going to be able to do a pajama day at school tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, good pajama day. Had no idea. Good thing we had this meeting.
And we did the mentor sessions with both of our last exchange students, with Roberta and Paola, and it was really good. I mean, if they were struggling with something or had things coming up, it was that one-on-one time without any of the other kids in the room, with both the parents there. It was a really neat opportunity to have that time with them to go over their goals and everything.
Yeah, it's true. And then on the next line, it has progress on religious goals. So anything that they had made the week before, you talk about how they're doing with that goal. And then on the next line, it says making a new religious goal. So if they've already mastered the goal that they had put out for the week before, you can set something new. And this has been anywhere from like saying my prayers at night or in the morning, or being reverent at church. Like, it's been anywhere with whatever they feel like they need to work on. They set a goal. And then the next one is behaviors, friends, family, concerns, and decisions. So we just kind of talk about this is usually where Davey and I get to talk, and we ask them, like, how are things going at school with your friends? Do you have any problems with anyone in the family? Or if they have some behaviors that we need to talk about, we'll kind of bring those up in this safe environment. And it's never a place to point fingers. It's more of like a conversation. And then you can talk about any concerns or decisions that they might have coming up. And the decisions was really cool when we had our exchange students, because they would have to make decisions about, like, what classes are you going to take, or what kind of friends are you going to try to seek out, you know?
And what's really cool with these mentor sessions is our church recently made a change worldwide where basically all the youth in the church are goal setting, you know, both religious and educational. And this is really similar to what we've been doing for years with our kids in these mentor sessions. So
I remember being really excited about that, because I'm like, we do this already. It's so exciting.
yeah, it's great.
And then you would go on to talking about educational goals. So they make, like, some educational goals if they're struggling in a class at school or whatever. And then there is a little commitment section at the bottom, and they write their name. It says, like, for example, if I was doing it, I'd say, I, April, commit to, and then you go over the things that you just wrote down. Like, if it was pray in the mornings and make good friends and stop punching Davey in the arm. Just kidding. I don't do that. But, I mean, maybe I do. Like, anything that I committed to on the paper. And then I sign my name, and then the witness signs. And then at the very bottom, these are my favorite part of the mentor session sheets. It says fun goal for the week. And the kid gets to just set a fun goal. It doesn't mean it's going to happen or has to happen, but it's something that, like, they set a goal for church and they set a goal for school. I think it's great that they set a goal for fun too. And it's been things like, maybe I'll have a late night this Friday, or I'd love to go here to Funtopia or something. And then it says date with dad if applies. So she talks about in the book how she would do, like, every week her husband would take one child on a date. And if it was their turn, then they would get to pick where they get to go out with the dad on the date. But we don't really do that one because our situation, you're home so much with the kids. Every day is a date with dad. But we do try to do special dates with each individual children randomly, but it's not structured to where it's like once a month. But it's about that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's mentor session. Family council, just to kind of sum up, you know, what we do, what we cover in that. We cover, you know, exciting news, things that are coming up this week.
The calendar.
The calendar. And we've still been consistently doing that really good, you know, going over what things are happening this week. We will go over some general problems in the house. Again, this is a time not to point fingers, but we're just like, I've noticed that this has been happening, and we all kind of come up with solutions to fix it. And as a group, we vote on what the consequence should be, say if somebody is leaving their plate at the table or whatever, but we'll, as a group, and we all agree on what the consequences be.
The majority rules.
Yeah, majority rules. So we're always evolving, always new problems coming up, new things, and we always are sure to not point fingers and say, this person's doing this, how do we stop it? We're like, right. I've noticed this is happening. And then we come up with, as a group, how we're going to fix the problem.
Yeah, it's similar to the mentor session, but it's the family unit. And you're talking about, like, things as the whole family needs to be aware of. And I do love that, like, the kids are picking the consequence for the things. So if I'm walking around the house throughout the week and I notice, like, there's pee on the back of the toilet seat, and I'm like, I'm not trying to figure out who did it. I'm just going to write a quick note in my phone on the notes page, like, in family council, we need to talk about this. So then when I bring it up, and I've taught my kids this too, it's not a point the finger, oh, this person's doing that. I know it's this person. It doesn't matter. The problem is...
And the kids will forget. We'll be like, hey, guys, we're not pointing fingers. We have to remind them quite a bit. Okay, guys, we're not pointing fingers.
But this is just a problem I've been noticing. How do you think we can fix it? And they'll think of a solution as a group. Like, we usually let the kids try to think of the solution and the consequence, and then we all vote on it. And sometimes they go way over the top of their consequence. Yeah, I was going to say,
sometimes they go way too far. That we're like, hey, guys, think about it. If this is happening, this is going to be your consequence. Like, let's actually think about this. If they forget to put
their plate in the table, then they lose their privileges for a year. And we're just like,
okay, let's think about this, guys. Come on.
Maybe just they have to wipe the table.
So yeah, we work as kind of the voice of reason. We set some goals as a family for the week. Let's move on past the family council. Let's move into, because I want to dive more into actual disciplining of our kids.
Right. So here's the thing. So this is like we explained how you kind of set up the family government is you make a list of things that you feel like need to happen in your home, and you make with those kids, that with whole family there, you make rules, you make consequences for those rules, and you stick to them. And we found that it's easiest to really stick to something basic like a chore. If you get too specific, then it's so hard to remember all of the rules in the whole family government. But in our family, for example, if you talk back to mom or dad, or if you say something unkind to one of your siblings, you earn a chore. And I am usually the one that has to be the judgment of like the crime, the punishment has to fit the crime. So if it's something that's like, oh, they talked back to me and we're like out at a movie theater or something, and I want them to be able to get that chore done, I will think of something that they can get done pretty quickly. Like, okay, well, you get to throw away all of our drinks and popcorn when the movie's over. That's the chore that you earned for doing that. And I'll just say to them, oh, just now you talked back to me and that's against our family rules, so you earned a chore. And like, that's just kind of how we'll let them know. And most of the time the kids will accept that they realize that they broke a family rule and that they'll accept that consequence. And then this brings me into the life skills.
Well, real quick, yeah, just before you go into that, I think it's important whether you're doing the things that we've learned in this book or something else, it's so important to have consistency that the consequences shouldn't be adjusted if the parent is in a bad mood. Like, that's what really sets kids off when they don't have the consistency.
Oh, absolutely. And you have to watch yourself as a parent to not say something that you are not going to enforce. Like, you have to be very strategic in what you say. And that's why it helps us too, having the family government, because we know that we're not going to be like, if you don't come over here right now, then you're losing all your Christmas presents. Like, I've heard people say that in public before, and I kind of am just like, holy cow, I know you're not going to stick to that. And even if you did stick to that, you're going to regret it because that's horrible.
Say what you're going to do and do what you say. Like, that's so important.
If you have your family government set up, then you know what the consequence is ahead of time, and you're not threatening them with empty threats. You're telling them exactly what's going to happen because they broke the family rule.
Okay, life skills.
Life skills. So these are the 4 life skills. I'm going to just turn to it in the book so I don't mess it up. Sometimes I say there's 5 life skills, but there's only 4. The 4 basic life skills are 1, following an instruction, 2, accepting a criticism or a no answer, accepting a consequence, and disagree appropriately. Those are the 4 life skills. Now, every single week we would teach our children these life skills in like our family home evening or our family council. These are what we were going over and over and over again for a few months to kind of just really make sure that they understood what was expected of them. And so what we did, and she suggests this in the book, but what we did was we went to the store, in the dollar store, and we filled up a bin with really fun prizes, and we made it kind of a game. It was like, if you can memorize one of the 4 basic life skills with its accompanying steps, because there's 1 to 6 steps, or no, there's like 4 to 6 steps in each one of these. So they have to remember what the life skill is and the steps that go with it.
And these life skills, like, they seem really basic, but
they are.
They are basic. If every human on this earth could master these life skills, it would be a different world that we lived in. The disagreeing appropriately, all of them.
Sadly, there's a lot of adults out there, I being one of them before I got this book, that hadn't mastered these life skills. So, for example, if we are teaching Elizabeth right now, she is 3, and she's actually mastered the following instruction, or the accepting a no answer. That one only has 4 steps. She can look at me and tell me, if I say, what is the life skill for accepting a no answer, which is also the same as accepting a criticism, but just for her to keep it more simple, I'm just saying no answer. She looks at me and she says, look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, and drop the subject. And I taught her what drop the subject means, because that, for little children, you have to kind of play games. So we would play games where she would be the mom and she would ask for some, or I'd be the kid and I'd ask for something and she would say no. And then I would like not drop the subject. But then I would teach her what it sounded like to drop the subject. It's when you stop talking about it and fix the situation. So she was able to like do all of those. So she was able to pick a prize out of the bin. So eventually all of our kids mastered all 4 of the life skills as far as like memorizing them goes. Obviously they haven't mastered them in real life. And I don't know that really happens until they're probably adults, but they should be trying to master these life skills throughout the rest of their lives as soon as they learn them.
An important thing to remember on, say, like accepting a no answer. It's not just your mom is telling you no, you can't go play at your friend's house. There's so many different ways a no answer can come to you, whether it's not making the basketball team or not getting that job you wanted.
Or the basket. If you throw a basketball at a rim and it bounces off and doesn't make the basket, that's disappointing. That is a no answer in life. Like, a no answer is anytime anything does not go your way or the way you hoped it would go. So you got to teach your kids that also. And we've talked about this with our kids. And here's another little twist to this: accepting criticism. That's the same as accepting a no answer. There are several different ways of accepting a criticism. Let me give you 3 examples. There's constructive criticism, where I'm like, maybe someone smells really bad and I could say, hey, it's time for you to go take a shower. You need to go do that. Okay, buddy, go do that right now, you know? Or there's destructive criticism, where it could be like, you stink really bad and your hair looks gross. Ew, go take a shower. You see the difference between those 2 criticisms? And then there's also compliments that are criticisms. They're just positive criticisms. So maybe I tell Davey, you look really handsome today. And he accepts the criticism the right way. What would it sound like?
Thank you.
Right. Or, okay, thanks. Drop the subject. If you say, no, I don't, I really don't, and you're sitting
I
there,
look horrible today.
I hate this outfit and I feel so gross, that is not accepting a criticism the right way. So like I said, the steps are: look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay, or ask to disagree appropriately, and then drop the subject. And I love that it says ask to disagree appropriately, because like I said, that's another one of the life skills. So that's kind of the next one we need to teach Elizabeth, because if you get a no answer and you really don't want the no answer, it's not just like you have to be a zombie and a robot your whole life and walk around and just like get no answers all the time. No, you absolutely, this is like the most important skill I think you can teach your children, is to disagree appropriately. I cannot count how many times I've said no to something and then they came back and said, Mom, I understand that you said I can't have chocolate milk, but I ate all of my dinner and I cleaned up my plate and I was really hoping to get just a little bit chocolate milk for my snack after dinner. And once I hear their argument, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, you can have some chocolate milk, instead of just throwing themselves on the floor and screaming and crying
So it's
and
the
pounding
disagreeing
their hands.
appropriately, not just disagreeing.
You can still get what you want sometimes if you know how to talk. So let me just talk about the disagreeing appropriately. These are so awesome. There's 6 steps to this one. You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body. You say that you understand the other person's opinion. Then you say your opinion. And then you listen to the decision and accept it. And number 6 is drop the subject. So it's like the best. You can teach your kids how to do this properly. And it takes a while. This one does take a while because they will default to that meltdown, Mount St. Helens, throw a fit on the floor. And when they're little and the stakes aren't very high, like they're just asking for chocolate milk, I like to just say no sometimes, just to see if they'll remember to disagree appropriately. And if they forget, I'll kind of prompt them and be like, you forgot how to disagree appropriately. Remember the life skill disagree appropriately? And then they'll go, oh yeah. And sometimes I would even have it like written out on the fridge when they were really little and we were trying to teach it to them. And I would read through it with them, and then they would do it and then get the chocolate milk, just so that I could teach them that there's an appropriate way to talk about things and disagree.
And the EB has been so funny. Like, you can teach these to kids when they're really young. Like, she doesn't like it yet, but she's accepting it. The other day, she was wanting to go to the store, and I gave her a no answer, and she was like, I can't wait till I'm a big person. I can drive a car and I don't give no answers from you. I'll just drive myself there and you don't get to come. And
And it was so cute because she really thought as soon as she turned into an adult, there's no such thing as no answers. But as an adult, and all of you know, adults that are listening, you will never stop getting no answers in your life. It's just going to be, how do you deal with them? Do you disagree appropriately? When you want a raise at work, are you going to walk in there and say, I want a raise? And then when they say no, you're going to just like fall on the ground kicking and screaming. Okay, you're going to get fired, first of all. Second of all, if you were to have learned this skill, you would have already planned ahead of time your opinion. You are going to know their opinion, so you're going to be able to sit down when they say no. You're going to say, well, I understand that things are tight and this is your opinion, but here's what I've done in the last year, and I really feel like it merits a raise. And then they might be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even look at it that way. Yeah, let's give you a raise. You never know.
And this is the self-government thing where in their lives when they're little, if they don't get what they want and they throw a fit and start punching things, then if they don't learn to govern their own emotions, when they're older, they're going to keep punching things and throwing fits or punching people in the face or road rage or just crazy stuff. So it's the self-governing your own emotions that you're teaching the children.
Absolutely. Another one, I'm going to just go over the following an instruction and the accepting a consequence really fast because those are the last two skills, and I feel like they're so important. Like I said, you can find these in the book, and it's like printed out to where you could scan it and blow it up and put it anywhere in your house if you want to teach your kids these life skills. But I strongly suggest reading the book because, like I said, 400 pages of goodness. This is such a great resource.
Read the book and refer to it often.
Following an instruction, you look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body. I should say what steps they are. Step number 1 is look at the person. Step number 2 is keep a calm face, voice, and body. Step number 3 is to say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. Step number 4 is do the task immediately. And step number 5 is to check back. Tell the person you're finished. Like, this is so important. If my kids do what I ask them, but they forget to check back, I'll give them another chore sometimes because I'm like, uh-oh, you forgot to check back. Remember, you must have forgotten the life skills. And if I do that a few times, then they don't forget to check back anymore. They'll come and report and say, hey, Mom, I just emptied the dishwasher. Is there anything else you need me to do? And
do the task immediately is key because so many times kids or even adults, if they don't do it immediately, they're going to forget or get distracted by something. So
yeah, and before that it says say okay. And if you say okay, you better do it or you disagree appropriately. If you can't do it immediately, you look at the person, you go to disagree appropriately. Look at the person, calm face, voice, and body. Say you understand their opinion. Mom, I understand you want me to empty the dishwasher right now, but I have to get my homework done and I'm really stressed about it. Is it okay if I empty the dishwasher after I do my homework? Oh yeah, absolutely. Or if it's not okay with me because I need to get the dishes going, I can say, no, do this first. But the fact that they're asking to disagree appropriately and doing that, it's a conversation instead of a big fight. So the last one, accepting a consequence, you look at the person as number 1. Number 2, keep a calm face, voice, and body. Do you realize the pattern here? Number 1 and 2 are always the same. Number 3 is say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. Number 1 through 3 are all the same, in fact. And number 5 is carry out the consequence, and number 6 is drop the subject. So that's if they earn a chore, arguing is not the way. They can disagree appropriately or just say okay and do the consequence and report back or whatever, or drop the subject. So those are the life skills. I hope you guys, I hope you learned something that's helpful.
Let's real quick just breeze over the rule of 3 because that's actual disciplining our children. This is the main thing that we do, and this is super important because, like I said, kids, they think they don't want structure, but they thrive on structure. When you can predict what's going to happen in the situation, when they know what's coming, when you know what's coming, there's a much better atmosphere in the home when, like I said, when you're not ruling off of emotion. If I'm super mad right now, I'm going to ground you for 2 weeks for something. Like everybody knows what's coming with the rule of 3.
And they also know the worst consequence that can be. Because like the rule of 3 is pretty structured in our family. I will say one more thing before we move on to the rule of 3. It's just an example. I remember, like, some of you might be thinking, this just sounds like a lot of work. Well, and I remember, I'm not going to name who it was, but I was talking to this mom, and she asked for my advice. And I don't know if she really just wanted me to listen or if she really wanted me to give her the advice. But she said, what do you do when your kids are being jerks to each other? They're being so mean. My kids are fighting all the time and they're being mean. And I started telling her about our rules and our family government and the life skills. And she looked at me and said, well, that just sounds like a lot more work for me. And I remember kind of laughing and being like, absolutely. Parenting.
This is what you signed up for. This is a parent.
That's what parenting is. It's a lot of work for you. So just remember that it's a lot of work, you guys. It really is. It's a lot. But it is going to pay off so much. I promise you. Like seeing how far our kids have come and their behavior and like some of the things we've gone through and fixed. It is amazing. Your kids will turn out as great little humans and you will be able to pat yourself on the back if you do the hard work.
This is the long-term results that you're going to see from actually putting forth the effort. It's always going to be easier in the moment to give your kid an iPad if they're fighting with their sibling. Like that's the easy thing. And maybe you
or
need
just
to
scream at them.
Or scream at them. Like maybe these are the things that are going to make you feel better for a second. And it's okay to do it every once in a while. Like we do play the phone card or the iPad card if we have to.
It's rare, but it's in like dire situations. Like when we were in the hospital and Elizabeth was getting her blood drawn and she was kind of freaking out. You better believe I whipped out that phone and I let her watch kid YouTube for like 5 minutes while she got her blood drawn. Do not regret that.
And I think we could do a whole podcast, or probably will do a whole podcast on, screen time and iPads with kids and phones with kids. But for now, I'm just saying that these things, they do seem a little intimidating, but in the long run, these are the things that are going to prepare your kids for life. And that's kind of our job as parents.
Absolutely. Okay. So now back to the rule of three. So the purpose of the rule of three is really just to get your kid back into the headspace of being teachable, because when they lose control, in the book it calls it out of instructional control, they kind of lose their minds and they're just like self-destruct mode, throwing fits, screaming, defiant, whatever. So you're really just trying to get them to kind of come back down off that ledge and just get to a point where they're listening to you again and calm. So in the book, it teaches you really can pick 3 consequences of whatever you decide. But in the book, I stuck to what the book does because I feel like she knows what she's doing, and we've kept doing that, and it's worked really well for our family. And I will say the first time when Zayd was like in 2nd grade is when we started using this. And I will say that he pushed back so hard. And I almost wanted to give up so many times. And I think that we went like 2 months of like constant drama.
Push back so hard is an understatement. It was rough. It was rough.
But we did so good. I remember Davey and I sitting in the car on the way up to our niece's baptism. And there was one child that had just like pushed back so hard. I won't say who it is, but like destroyed a few very valuable things in the house to where most parents probably would have wanted to like hurt their child. Like hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. There was like an album that we hadn't given to a bride yet that was ripped and thrown in the snow that we had to pay $400 to replace. Like there was a lot. It was a lot. There was several things, this big fit that had happened. And Davey and I both kept our cool. We did not freak out or scream or yell. We like followed the book because we had both just read it and we were fresh in our minds, and we looked at it and we were like, bummer. That's really sad that you did that, because now you're going to have to pay for it. And so I'm going to go into the rule of 3 and you'll see
Wait, the best
why.
part of the story. Hit me with your best shot.
The next song on the radio was Pat Benatar, Hit Me With Your Best Shot. And Davey and I just started belting it at the top of our lungs on the way.
Our kids didn't know what was going on or why we were so happy, because we weren't supposed to be happy. We were supposed to be pissed off at that point. But we were just like,
we are nailing this parenting thing. Our kid had just completely acted out, and we did not yell at him or her, whoever it was. We did not yell at the child. We did not freak out. We kept our heads on straight. We dealt out the consequences, and we stuck to our guns, and we were so proud of ourselves.
That was a big victory that I will never forget.
And it took a couple months to have that debt paid off of like selling things. And it was like in January. And I think that child ended up having, on their own idea, selling all of their Christmas presents on KSL in order to earn the money, because they were sick of being grounded. They were going to be grounded until they had fixed what they had met broke. Ed, they finally cracked and was like, I'll do anything. I'm sick of being grounded. But it was a couple months of being grounded. Like,
Okay, so real quick, we're going to go over the rule of 3. But before that, when we kind of went over this a little bit, when basic things happen in the house, the kids earn a chore. It's 1 or 2 chores, like 2 for hitting is usually kind of real basic, but ground level is you earn 1 chore. That's
well, yeah. And like the consequence and like, it has to fit the crime.
yeah.
So like hitting, I'm usually like, I'm going to make it pretty hard. The chores are going to be pretty hard. So it's 2 pretty hard chores. I don't tolerate the hitting. But then the saying unkind things to each other and stuff, yeah, that's more like a chore. But he's right. But so if they flip out and like lose their head, what do we do?
Okay, rule of 3. This is a basic set of steps. And again, this is something that helps both parents stay calm. And sometimes one of us kind of forgets to go to the rule of 3. April reminds me a lot. You're like, hey, Davey, just go to the rule of 3.
I'm like,
just go to the rule of
are
3.
you
Like,
arguing?
come on, don't argue. Just go to the rule of 3. Like, rule of 3. And so it definitely helps having 2 parents there. Usually one's hot-headed in the situation and the other one is kind of just looking on like, okay, rule of 3. Like, and I'll remind April sometimes too.
Well, and it's hard sometimes too, because I think that as parents, we don't want to go to the rule of 3 because we know that those are going to be, it's like, oh, but that looks like more work for me, because then you have to hold them to the consequences. But here is what it is. So basically you're prepping them to calm down. So this is what it sounds like. I say like Davey was the one that was out of control. I would say, Davey, you are out of instructional control and you have to stay calm when you're doing this. And I have a hard time staying calm when I'm doing this. Sometimes I get the sassy voice, but I'll say, I'm going to give you an instruction, and if you choose not to follow it, you will be choosing to have this consequence, which in our house is 30 minutes of maintenance, which is a chore that's going to take them at least 30 minutes to finish. It's not an easy chore. And then I'm going to give you another instruction, and if you choose not to follow that instruction, you will have a SOTUS chart, which in a SOTUS chart in our family, it's in the book. It's a paper that they fill out when they've calmed down. And it talks about the decision making. So it's situation, SODAS, SODAS. Situation, what is it?
It's been a little while. Options.
So
you go over the situation. They go over the options.
So they have to pick 3 options. And then they do the disadvantages and the advantages and then the solution. So they have to fill out the whole sheet, and it just helps them to think, oh, next time I'm going to make this better decision. And then I digress. And then I continue on saying, I'm going to give you another instruction after that. And if you choose not to listen to that instruction, then you will have no privileges for 24 hours. So that is the worst thing that can happen in our house, is no privileges for 24 hours. And it doesn't really mean 24 hours. It means at least 24 hours, because the timer does not start until that child has A, cooled down, B, accepted their consequences, and C, said to me, I'm ready for the timer to start. I'm ready to accept my consequences. So they have to be calmed down again before that starts. So it could be 4 days before, if they freak out and throw a fit over and over again, they don't have privileges for as long as they choose.
And I remember the first time I heard like that was the worst thing that could happen, is like losing your privileges is it's not eating snacks between meals. They still eat at meals.
Yeah.
And
they get breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Not
and
watching
just don't get
TV
treats.
and not playing with friends. I mean, that's most of it. I was like, there's no way that's going to be an effective punishment for my kids. Like, they need to be grounded for a few weeks. But you wouldn't believe, you take away snacks in between meals and kids think they're going to die. They're like, I'm literally starving. I have to eat something. And nope, you're going to be okay.
Oh, especially if they're being defiant still, because I've had it. This has actually happened. The child has been like, well, I'm not going to eat then. Because we'll say, well, it's dinner time. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to eat. I hate that dinner. I'm not eating. I'm like, okay, that's your choice. Dinner's going to be over in 30 minutes, and then you won't be able to eat again until breakfast time. And they know that choice is there, and I totally let them do it. If they want to go to bed hungry, fine by me. I'm like not encouraging them to do that, but if they choose it, like that's giving them the control. And tell you what, it's very rare that our kids go to bed hungry, because they kind of realize, yeah, well, I'm actually hungry. And they'll come down and gobble up their dinner really quick right before the timer goes off and go to bed. And then in the morning, or usually right after that, when they get some food in their tummy, they're like, I want the timer to start, and they'll accept their consequences. Like I said in the beginning, there was a couple months where there was one of a couple kids in our family that they pushed back real hard, and they didn't have snacks and friend time and screens for about 2 months.
They wanted to show us that our new way of parenting was not going to work.
I
on
hate
them.
that book, and I'm never going to do it.
And guess what?
Okay.
It did. It did work.
It worked. Absolutely. It did work. But the key is to stay calm. The key is to be consistent and to not go back. Now, I will say the rule of 3 has fallen on, and kids have lost privileges on situations where I'm like, oh crap, but we're going to Disneyland tomorrow, or it's their birthday, or it's a holiday, or we have this really fun day at Lagoon planned for the whole family tomorrow, or our family was going to go out to ice cream tonight. There's certain times where I'm like, oh, well, you miss out on that because that's just part of missing out on the consequence or having a consequence. But there's also been times where it's like a family gathering or family event like Thanksgiving or Christmas. Absolutely, you're not going to be like, you can't have any treats and you can't come to Thanksgiving.
You have to stay home.
Yeah, no. In those situations, we will delay the consequences. We'll say like, okay, today's a really special day. You will not have privileges on Sunday. Like, we'll move it to a day that's like the next day. It's never like next week. We don't delay it that much. But if it's their birthday and they've thrown a fit the day before, we'll be like, you know what? You have to have some mercy and stuff in there. And it's hard to navigate through, because if you're doing it too much, then you're just like doing faults. Like, you're just like, what is it called? Empty threats. It's not empty threats. Your kids need to know that you're serious when you say something. And it's very rare when we are like, oh, well, this is a family thing, so you're able to come still.
And sometimes it's a little bit less than delaying the consequence. Sometimes we'll say, you get to come bowling with the family, but when everybody else is getting treats, you're not getting any treats with the family. So they'll still get to participate. So there's a couple of different options, but you just have to be smart and have mercy on your kid.
You have to gauge the kid too, because sometimes, like, I remember when there was a kid of ours that was really struggling, throwing them a little bone and being like, well, for family home evening, we're going out to ice cream. And because it's a family activity, I'm going to let you have it this time, but only because it's a family activity for family home evening and you're part of our family and we love you. And that has resonated a lot and actually changed their hearts so much, because they're like, oh, and then shortly after that, they'll accept their consequences and things will be fine again. So,
and most of it just depends on the kid's attitude. And I tell my kids that all the time, guys, all you need, just change your attitude right now. 100% your attitude. So the rule of 3, I mean, April went over the three consequences that can happen. Basically, It's the verbiage, saying these words. It's the first step is you state all the things that are about to happen. And the kids start hearing you say these words, and they realize, okay, I've heard this, I'm in the rule of 3, and they make a choice. They're either, I'm going to calm down while these words start coming out of mom's mouth. It gives them a second. It's not just, boom, you did this, here's the consequence.
I know, I'm so bad at like telling this story because I keep getting distracted.
Well, there's so much information to cover. I don't blame you, because there are so many different, like, it's a 400-page book. We're kind of trying to sum up in an hour here.
And I've never given the instruction. So I'm going to tell you what the instruction is at the end of all of these right now, because I forgot to do that. So after you say, I'm going to give you an instruction, if you choose not to follow it, you will earn 30 minutes of maintenance. Then you say, the instruction I'm going to give you is I need you to calm down and take 3 deep breaths, or just take 3 deep breaths. That's all you're wanting them to do. It's just 1, 2, 3.
And it's got to be 3 audible breaths. They can't be like, okay, I did it. 3 breaths. No,
I'm like, nope. Deep breaths is, that is a deep breath. So I've taught my kids. And all I want them to do is take those 3 deep breaths. And then you need to give them positive, good job taking the 3 deep breaths. I'm so proud of you for taking those breaths. I can tell you're ready to talk now, and we can talk about it. And then you can talk about it calmly and disagree appropriately. If they're still flipping out, you go through all the 3 things, and every single time, the only thing you're asking them to do is to take those 3 deep breaths. And sometimes we will even kind of just pause all of it. Like, we have some kids that get hangry, we call it. And I'm like, I know that you are just melting down because you are so hungry. So let's just hurry and eat this granola bar. And if they won't do that, then I'll just kind of like let's just do a timeout. Now, we don't use timeout as a punishment, but I will use it sometimes as a way just to let them clear their head and get into a better space before I continue on with the rule of 3, because I can tell that me just saying take 3 deep breaths might not do it this time. So we've let the kids kind of just remove themselves for the situation from like 10, 15 minutes. And then they don't get out of it. You have to make sure that you hold them to the consequence that they earned before. But it's just important to let them calm down a little bit. So that's how we use timeout.
And that's an important thing too, is, and I think she mentions this in the book, is writing down the kids' consequences. If they are throughout the day, if they're hitting or, talking back, and you say, okay, that's a chore, you earned a chore, then you need to write those down, because or otherwise it's just fluff, it's empty threats, it means nothing. So write down the consequences.
And they'll when they're ready to do it, finally, they're like, okay, how many chores do I have? And you need to be able to tell them the real number, because they're going to either remember and they're just testing you to see.
Yeah, usually they know what they've earned, but they're just...
How much? Maybe if mom will knock off a couple on accident. But I will get out my phone notes and be like, okay, you earned 5. And if they start to argue with me, then I'll be like, these were I understand that I'll disagree appropriately with them. I understand that you feel that you don't have that many, but these are the reasons why I feel you do. And then I'll name you forgot to accept no answer, you forgot to accept a criticism, you hit your brother, blah, blah, blah. So you have 5 chores. And then if they are still not accepting the consequence, then they're obviously not ready. And you can go to the rule of 3, or you can let them have another timeout or whatever. But usually they're like, okay, and they'll do the chores. And if you need to have a little chore jar where you have stuff written down that needs to be done and then pull it out, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. It's more making sure that they know there's a consequence. And sometimes it's been as easy as like Evie will pick up the gum wrapper on the floor and throw it away. That's a chore. I'm just making sure she's doing something to fulfill the consequence so that she's not getting off without the consequence. So yeah, that's a lot of info. This is a 53-minute podcast, guys.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. But we did try to sum up our main disciplining techniques and the things we've taken from the House United. Again, I recommend reading this book, and hopefully
I have one more thing.
We can get nicholene Peck on here one time and kind of ask her some questions. Go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing. The model in this book that I forgot to talk about that I feel like is the most important is the House United, how she sets it up. She says, the floor of the house is your commitment or duty to a higher power. So we would put God there. And then the walls of the house are a committed mother and a committed father on each side. And they need to be equal. If your walls are one's shorter and one's higher, the house isn't going to stand up. And then the roof, the ceiling of the house is good family relationships. If you don't have good family relationships, you're not going to be able to do the 2 rooftops of the house, which are correcting negative behavior and teaching positive behaviors. So in order to be able to teach and correct, you need to have good family relationships. And I think that that's why she emphasizes so much about relationship. You need to make sure that you have a good relationship with your kids. And that's why it's so important not to be screaming and yelling at them, and to be having these meetings where you're showing them that you care about them and spending quality time with them and learning their love language and loving them like crazy, so that you can have good relationships, so that you can teach them these things. And so I'm glad that I remembered to add that in, because I think that's probably the most important part of the book.
Okay, awesome. Thank you if you made it to the end of this podcast. I think you're 1% a better parent already for just listening to this. No? Yeah? Maybe?
Oh, they get 10%.
10% better. Okay. Congratulations, you made it. And if you get a chance, leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. That helps us a lot. Thank you for tuning in to the April and Davey podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.